Welcome. So the recapitulation. In this video, I'm going to talk about the two types of recapitulation. The first one is what's known as the spontaneous recapitulation, and the second one is formal recapitulation. Those are broadly the two categories that exist, but as you practice the recapitulation, you'll find that categories don't really matter too much. But in this one, we'll talk about roughly two types. In my book, The Addiction Fiction, I talk about the recapitulation in one of the chapters, in one of the later chapters. I call it the reconsolidation in that book. The reason being is because I feel it's a better description of the exercise itself, since it's the act of reclaiming a lost energy, energy from the past, releasing past energy, and it's basically the act of reconsolidating what's known as your energy body. So welcome to Decoding Castaneda. This is a playlist in my channel where I talk about concepts and practices as put forth by Carlos Castaneda, and I try to sort of decode it and make it make sense. I'm just a practitioner. I am by no means a Nagual. I'm by no means a man of knowledge. I'm just a guy trying. So consider this more of a discussion as opposed to me teaching you what to do. But I've had some incredible results, some great results with the recapitulation. So this is why I'm putting it out there. You can find the link to my book in the description, as well as a link to a separate document I made on the recapitulation. It's an 18-page document. I offer it for free. So the link is in the description if you want a more in-depth procedure and discussion on how to do this. So let's move on. When it really comes down to it, there isn't much to talk about. It's really just an exercise, and it's quite basic in how you approach it. I've been reading Castaneda for over 20 years. I've gone through his books several times, and I'm sure a lot of you have as well. But one thing that I noticed after 15 years of reading and going through it, and practicing dreaming and pretty much trying to absorb all the concepts and everything about it, I noticed that I had put the recapitulation aside. I sort of kept it at arm's length because it seemed like too much of a daunting task. I didn't really want to get into it. It sounded like an unnecessary discipline, which is weird because Don Juan and all of those, the apprentices, I guess you could say, I think it's their first order of business is to straddle the recapitulation and start reviewing your life, and breathing through it, reviewing it, basically fixing your energy is one of the first orders of business for those guys. So I don't know why I put it off for so long, but all I can say is that once I did start practicing it, it was pretty tangible. The results are tangible. You feel quite a bit differently after a while. So it may sound like an unnecessary discipline, not unnecessary exercise, but it's well worth trying. Give it a few weeks and see what happens. So spontaneous recapitulation is where whatever memory comes up in the moment, you attempt to pluck it out of the air and recapitulate it. Formal recapitulation is where you make a list, ostensibly a list of everyone you've ever met in your life, and you put them into separate categories, places you've worked, cliques of various friendships. You try and segment your life in as methodical a way as possible, and you make a list of everyone you ever met, and then you go through each person, especially the tougher ones, the ones that have perhaps more drama associated to them, and all your sexual encounters as well. You're supposed to breathe through all of it. So the formal recapitulation is you make a list. It should take about 3 or 4 weeks, just making the list of everyone you've ever met. And then you go through it one by one, breathing through this exercise, which I'll describe shortly. In formal recapitulation, you can also use confined spaces like a closet or any kind of space that has walls that are close to you. The idea there is that those walls, that physical space, exerts a kind of pressure on your luminous shell, and it gives you more focusing power, if that makes sense. It sort of puts pressure on your energy so you can compress it. So if you're more serious about the exercise, you can try stuff like that. I myself just sit on the edge of a chair or on the edge of my bed in a dark space, usually with a blanket of some sort. That seems to be enough for me to get the job done. And spontaneous recapitulation, like I said, is where you simply do the exercise whenever the memory comes up. So the actual exercise itself is once you sit down with your feet planted on the ground, your hands on your thighs, and you close your eyes and you rebuild the event in your head. So that means you sort of repiece the imagery together. It could be rooms, it could be windows, it could be a field, wherever you were, and you just repiece everything, and then you let the memory flow. And as the memory is flowing, you start with your chin on the right side, your eyes are closed, and then you inhale to one side, exhale to the other side. I'm sort of rushing through it right now because I don't want to make this video too long, but that is the core of the exercise. And as you do it, you'll start to feel pretty good. Unless you enter what's called tiring breaths, where your memories maybe are getting a little foggy or disjointed, or you're thinking about something else and you're continuing to do the exercise, and then you start thinking about your day. That's when the breath stops working. So you'll know, you just have to keep pushing through those difficult moments and keep forcing yourself to try and repiece the memory. And really, that's it. That's the exercise. And a lot gets resolved in practice. So if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I'll answer as many as I can. But most of my questions always got answered with continued practice. Practicing the recapitulation is like anything in life. You have to do it repeatedly. If you want to learn how to play piano, you have to play every day. If you want to learn how to code, you have to code every day. You don't need too much brain power or too much talent to do anything. Everything is repetition and focus. So it's the same thing with the recapitulation, and it may sound like an unnecessary exercise. It may sound like an unnecessary discipline. It certainly feels that way at first, but once you get into it, it's a lot of fun, like anything, and very much worth it. One of my fears, one of the reasons I put off practicing this exercise for so long is because I thought, how could you review your life in such a way and also not waste time, not waste your life? If you have to review your whole life, then isn't it true that you would be wasting the second half of your life reviewing the first half? This is one of the questions I had, and it's one of the things that kept me from practicing in the first place. But what really happens in recapitulation is that you go into an altered state, and time sort of gets suspended. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's something like being in REM sleep. It's like dreaming. Your eyes you're moving at a different speed, and you can recapitulate a lot of your life experience sometimes in just half an hour or an hour. So that gets resolved while doing it. So I would say you don't need to worry about the perceived time problem. You don't need to worry about your karma. Karma plays out in time. So you eliminate your karmic bonds with this exercise. Karmic events need time to exist. They need time to play out. And the recapitulation is sort of like jumping in and cutting off the time segment. I don't know if that makes sense, but basically you don't need to worry about time when you're doing this exercise. And like I said earlier, this is me just sharing what I've learned and what I know, and I hope it helps. but I'm also looking for discussion as well. One thing I haven't necessarily been able to resolve, and maybe whoever's listening and watching can help me, but in one of the books, Carlos talks about the fact that he has to stop his dreaming practices in order to recapitulate again. He had to suspend his dreaming in order to review some stuff that he had left out in his recapitulation. So in that book, he says that once you're recapitulating, that your dreaming practices are interrupted somehow. I haven't had that experience. I've been able to continue my dreaming practices while recapitulating. So what's your opinion on that? And if you've had the same experience, have you recapitulated and then had a problem with dreaming afterwards? What's been your experience? So I leave an open-ended question there, and like I said, there's a link in the description with a free guide on the recapitulation. Thanks for checking this out, and I'll talk to you soon.